You are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moment on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, I quickly run with you the arterial blood supply to the pelvis. My friends, one thing that we know about the pelvis, is that it has to get a rich blood supply, which will have to supply not only the viscera over there, but also the wall by way of the musculature and of course the bony components. Now, one thing is that the pelvic, vasculature, mainly will be coming from what we call the branches of the internal iliac artery. Okay, now one thing we know is that the abdominal aorta is about 13 centimeters long. At the level of L4 vertebral level, we'll have to divide, giving us of course the left and right common iliac arteries, which will later we'll have to divide, giving us of course the external and of course the internal iliac arteries. My friends, I am interested in the internal iliac artery because the main blood supply to the pelvis will be coming from it. But of course, in addition to that, coming from the posterior aspect of the terminal part of the abdominal aorta, we will have what we call the median sacral artery. That one will also go in there to supply some portion of the wall of what we call the pelvis. And not only that, we may also have what we call superior rectal artery, which of course we will see where it will be coming from. Of course, already I've told you that it will be coming from internal, pudendal artery. Yes, we will see all those ones. But more importantly, even the gonads, especially in females, also, because they reside in the pelvic region, also be coming from, of course, the gonadal artery. It's precisely in females, ovarian artery. Now, my friends, at the end of this section, importantly, I want you to know all the branches coming from, of course, the internal iliac artery. And so, without much ado, let's set the ball rolling. My friends, there we are. There's a schematic representation. My friends, if you can understand all these things I'm going to explain to you, then it becomes very simple in real-time sections. So my friends, one thing, just to a quick orientation. My friends, this is the pelvic, one of the pelvic bones. The oscosi. And of course, you know that the left and right pelvic bones will be connected via, this fibrocartilaginous structure which we call the pubic symphysis. So whenever you see pubic symphysis, then we know we are looking at the anterior aspect. And whenever I see the continuation of the vertebral column by way of course, here we have what we call the sacrum and the coccyx, which will of course, the sacrum, which will go downwards, to become of course the coccyx. Okay, so once I see this, then I know I am in the region of what we call the posterior aspect of what we call the pelvic region. And similarly, because there's a sacrum, it means there's a superior extent, and as I come downwards, I'm going downwards. Now, my friends, you can see this guy over here, there's a rectum. It means I'm going towards the inferior aspect, going to the anal canal. Okay, so that's a quick orientation that we have to give. Now, my friends, having seen that, I already told you that the main blood supply to the pelvic viscera as well as the wall will be coming from, of course, branches of what we call internal iliac artery. Now, just a quick one, I told you that, the abdominal aorta, should be about around 13 centimeters long. It's coming downwards. And my friends, at the level of the lower border of the L4 vertebral level, the 4 lumbar vertebrae, that's what happens. It divides, okay? That's the terminal aspect. It divides, giving rise to what we call the left and right common iliac arteries. Now, my friends, they are called common iliac because at the end of the day, they are going to divide, giving us what we call this guy over here. Okay, so that's the common iliac artery. Now, this common iliac artery is going to divide, giving us what we call, external iliac artery, and of course, the internal iliac artery. My friends, this one is happening around what we call the L5S1 vertebral level. So around the 5th lumbar and then the 1st sacral vertebral level, that is where this, division is taking place. Okay, so that is, one thing I want you to know. So around, that kind of L5S1 vertebral level, okay, we get this common iliac artery for whichever way, both left and right, divided into what we call an external iliac artery and of course an internal iliac artery. Now my friends, if you can see over here, the external iliac artery is quite longer. Yes, it will go all the way, but it will reach the level, at the level of the inguinal ligament, which attaches from the ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine, all the way to the pubic tubercle. What will happen is that we have that inguinal ligament, a modification of the lower fibers of external oblique aponeurosis. My friends, what we see is that beyond that, this external iliac artery, the name will change to become what we call the femoral artery. Now, I'm not interested in this external iliac artery nor the femoral artery. What I am interested is this guy over here, where it's a very short trunk that we find over here, which we call the internal iliac artery. Internal iliac artery. Okay, so that is, one thing that we find. Yes, a very short trunk, but what you see is that it runs, anteromedial to what we call the sacral, okay, to what we call the sacroiliac joint. Okay, it will run anteromedial to the sacroiliac joint. Okay, so between the sacrum and of course the iliac bone, yes, will run, that kind of anteromedial, okay, to it. And then immediately it will divide, giving us, of course, these two divisions. So my friends, this guy over here, which we are calling it the internal iliac artery, will have two divisions. Okay, and these two divisions anatomically, the one where is in front, okay, more closer to this pubic symphysis, it will be in front. That becomes the anterior division. The one where is closer to, of course, the sacrum, yes, becomes the posterior division. Okay, so that is what you have to know. And my friends, this division is taking place just above what we call the greater sciatic foramen. So my friend, that's a very important MCQ question that you can get, that where is it taking place, where is this division taking place? It is divided, okay, into, of course, this anterior division and posterior division just above what we call the greater sciatic foramen. Okay, that's an important thing. Now my friends, what are therefore these divisions, which what are the divisions going to give rise to? So my friends, we have about 7, okay, in females and about 6 in males, coming from this kind of anterior division. Now the anterior division I've highlighted in yellow. Okay, so we'll be going in an anti-clockwise manner. So please get the orientation. We'll be going in an anti-clockwise manner, and then of course we have the posterior division, which of course I've highlighted in yellow, blue over here. So what are these? This kind of branches coming from the anterior division in an anti-clockwise manner. The lateral most, okay, from left all the way to the right side, okay, anti-clockwise manner. I have this guy over here. Sorry, let me begin with this one. This guy over here is known as the obturator artery. Now I'm starting with this obturator artery for a reason, that it is more lateral. Although we can see this artery over here, where is the umbilical artery, where it's a bit at a higher level. Okay, what happens is that it is more medial. Okay, the obturator artery is more lateral, but yes, it's at an inferior level. So I'll begin with this obturator artery. My friends, one thing we know about this obturator artery is that we also have obturator nerve. Yes, of course, obturator vein. Yes, both of them. So all these guys will be important in supplying, of course, and of course draining what we call the muscles of the medial compartment of the thigh. Okay, that's that guy. Okay, that's the obturator artery. So you see that, yes, on the lateral wall of the pelvic cavity, we see this big foramen over here, which we call it the obturator foramen. Now, my friend, this obturator foramen, I've already told you consistently that in the living, it will be occupied by a membrane, which we call it the obturator membrane, leaving a small superior opening, which we call the obturator canal. And it is this obturator canal, which, of course, this obturator artery will have to run through. Okay, so that is, one thing that I want you to know. It will run through and, of course, exit the pelvic cavity, okay, going to supply what we call the medial compartment of the thigh. Yes, when it gets there, then it supply those muscles of the medial compartment of the thigh. Okay, so that is the obturator artery. Okay, so that is the orientation. You should see it leaving through what we call the obturator canal. Now the next artery that I'm going from anti-clockwise manner, okay, from left to right, okay, then I'll go to this artery, which you see it at a bit at a higher level. My friend, this artery is known as the umbilical artery. So this is the umbilical artery. My friends, one thing that frequently we say is that this umbilical artery becomes obliterated. Yes, it's important in fetal life, such that it will send what we call oxygen poor blood towards the placenta, okay, from the fetus towards the placenta, okay, for subsequent oxygenation. We say that this umbilical artery, we know we have left and right umbilical arteries. We know that, yes, they will become obliterated after birth, okay, and what will happen is that those remnants will be called medial, umbilical ligament, medial umbilical ligament. My friends, one thing that people say is that yes, this umbilical artery will give rise to medial umbilical ligament, but my friends, there's a catch. The catch is that it is not the entire extent of this medial umbilical ligament, which the entire extent of this umbilical artery which gives rise to medial umbilical ligament. But my friends, it is the distal portion. I'll show you in another image. It is the distal portion of the medial umbilical ligament which becomes what we call the medial umbilical ligament. My friends, the proximal portion will continue to become this artery which is going to the superior wall of what we call the urinary bladder, and that is why we call it superior vesical artery. It's not vesicular, my friends. Superior vesical, V-E-S-I-C-L-C-A-L. Okay, superior vesical artery, not vesicular. Okay, so that is that artery. So my friends, you should understand this one I'm talking about, that yes, it is this umbilical artery, okay, the proximal portion of this umbilical artery which will give rise to, of course, the superior vesical artery. Okay, so that is one thing I want you to know. Now this superior vesical artery, if I mention superior vesical artery, then it makes sense that I have to quickly mention this guy over here which is the inferior vesical artery. Okay, so we are moving in an anti-clockwise manner. I've mentioned this guy which is, of course, the superior vesical artery, which is a branch, okay, the proximal portion of this umbilical artery. My friends, there's a distal portion of the umbilical artery which becomes obliterated, giving us the medial umbilical ligament. Now, once I've mentioned superior vesical artery, then it makes sense then at the inferior aspect of the urinary bladder, it got to be supplied, but of course the inferior vesical artery. But my friends, over here too, there's a catch. The catch is that in females we don't have inferior vesical artery, rather we have vaginal artery. In females we don't have inferior vesical artery, we have vaginal artery. Why? Because this same vaginal artery which will be supplying the inferior aspect of the urinary bladder over there, alongside, of course, the rectum, okay, some portion of the rectum. Okay, so that's what I want you to know. But in males, we are having this inferior vesical artery, and it is not also supplying only the inferior wall of the urinary bladder, because we know that at the inferior aspect of the urinary bladder, yes, around the neck of the urinary bladder, yes, surrounding the urethra, what will happen is that we have what you call the prostatic urethra. The prostatic urethra means the prostate around over there, and that is why the prostate gland will also be supplied by this same inferior vesical artery in males. Okay, alongside, of course, the seminal vesicles, which will also be adhered to the posterior wall of the urinary bladder. Okay, so that is one thing that I want you to know. That is an important catch that I want you to know, that in females you don't have inferior vesical artery, rather we have vaginal artery. Okay, so that is one thing I want you to know. My friends, moving away from this inferior vesical artery, then it makes sense that I quickly come and, of course, talk about this guy over here, which is, of course, the uterine artery. Now, my friends, in females you have uterine artery, males you don't have uterus, and therefore we don't have uterine artery. One thing that we know about this uterine artery is that it runs in some kind of ligament, very strong ligament, which we call the cardinal ligament, to reach, of course, the cervix of the uterus. The cervix of the uterus is also known as the neck of the uterus, and my friends, it will contribute to an important anastomotic connection, yes, around with what we call the ovarian artery, which of course the gonadal artery in females. Okay, we will look at all those ones later. So my friends, keep an eye on this guy, which is, of course, the uterine artery. That is a division which you don't find in males. Okay, that's one thing we should know. Now, my friends, once I move away from the uterine artery, okay, in females, then it means that yes, we are going to the rear aspect. We've moved away from the urinary bladder. So you can just understand it by this way. Yes, if you look at the female, you know that the urethra, yes, will be opening anteriorly, and before we come to the urethra, I have to go to the urinary bladder, and that's why you should think about the superior vesical artery, which I've told you that it should be coming from, of course, the proximal portion of the umbilical artery. Then once I'm done with that, then of course the lower aspect of the urinary bladder will also have to be supplied. It will be supplied by, of course, by the inferior vesical artery. And I told you that inferior vesical artery in males, it will not only supply that one, it will also supply, of course, the prostate gland. We've mentioned that one to you. Not only that, it will also supply the seminal vesicles. But of course, in females, you don't have inferior vesical artery, because this guy over here, which is, of course, the vagina, because once I move away from the urinary bladder, I'm going to the vagina. Okay, that's one thing. I would rather have vaginal artery, and that vaginal artery also perform the role of supplying the inferior aspect of the urinary bladder in females. And once I'm moved away from that, then the uterus is also very important, because when I go cranial to the vagina, I'm going to, of course, the uterus, and that's why I should have what we call the uterine artery in females. It's as simple as that. And once I move away from the uterus, then behind the uterus, behind the vagina, I should have the rectum. And that's why another branch which will be coming from the anterior division of the internal iliac artery should be, of course, the middle rectal artery. My friends, keep an eye on this. This is middle rectal artery. I'm not talking about superior rectal artery, because one thing that we know about superior rectal artery is that if you look at what we call the vasculature of the abdominal wall, okay, or abdominal cavity, one thing that we find is that we find what we call the inferior mesenteric artery. Now, the distal continuation of the inferior mesenteric artery terminally is what we call the superior rectal artery. And one other artery which of course is also related to the rectum, which of course we talk about this, which is the inferior rectal artery. One thing we know about inferior rectal artery is that it will be supplying mainly of what the external anal sphincter. So those of you who have watched the videos that I've done on the perineum, which I've done on the ilio rectal fossa, you know that the inferior rectal artery is a branch of internal pudendal artery. It's a branch of internal pudendal artery. So please, my friends, this artery shouldn't be superior, neither should it be, of course, inferior. It should rather be middle rectal artery. So it means that the superior rectal artery will be supplying the superior portion of the rectum, while the inferior portion of the rectum will be supplied by the middle rectal artery. Although we talk about inferior rectal artery, it is not really supplying the rectum, it is supplying the external anal sphincter, the anus. Okay, that is one thing that I want you to know. Okay, so that is the middle rectal artery. But of course, by and large, all these arteries of the rectum, the superior, the middle, of course, inferior rectal arteries, will of course, anastomose, around this region. Now, once I'm done, then I go to this artery. I'm going in an anticlockwise manner. I go to this artery, which is of course the internal pudendal artery. Internal pudendal artery. Yeah, this is the main artery to the perineum. Internal pudendal artery, just like the main nerve to the perineum being, of course, the pudendal nerve. The main artery to the perineum is, of course, the internal pudendal artery. Now, one thing we know about this pudendal artery is that yes, it will have to, exit this pelvic cavity through, of course, the greater sciatic foramen. We explained that one to you. Then it will run, externally over what we call the ischial spine, and then of course it will enter the perineum through, of course, the lesser sciatic foramen. That is that guy, internal pudendal artery. Yes, eventually it will go through what we call the Ocox canal alongside, the pudendal nerve. Okay, so that for that kind of a bit of protection. Okay, that is what we see. Or the pudendal canal. Okay, that is the internal pudendal artery. And of course, in there to give all those perineal branches over there. Okay, so this is the main artery to, of course, the perineum. And that is why whenever you talk about musculature, vasculature of the pelvis, yes, we also talk about the internal iliac artery is not only supplying those structures within the pelvic, but also those structures in the perineum by way of for the penis, the clitoris. They are all going to get supplied. Yes, because there will be a branch which we are calling it the internal pudendal artery. Okay, so that is that guy over here. My friends, the terminal portion or the last branch of the anterior division of what we call the internal iliac artery is this guy over here, because I'm at the rear aspect, I'm at the posterior aspect, and that is what we call the inferior rectal artery. My friends, it is inferior because at a lower level you will see another one which will be at a higher level, which we call superior rectal artery. This one is known as inferior rectal artery. And my friends, keep an eye on that muscle that we mentioned already, one of those muscles of the pelvis, which works on the lower limb, okay, helping lateral rotation of the lower limb. That was piriformis, which will lead through the greater sciatic foramen. My friends, that guy is the one which is dividing these two arteries. Okay, we have one over here which is superior rectal artery, superior gluteal artery. This is inferior gluteal artery. The reason is simple. There will be one muscle separating them. That is the piriformis muscle. And therefore, if you emerge below piriformis, you'll be called inferior gluteal artery, which of course, one important thing that we know about this, inferior gluteal artery, because it's emerging, yes, below this, piriformis. That's why we're giving it that name, to exit, of course, this, pelvic cavity, to come to the gluteal region. But my friends, when it comes into the gluteal region, it is going there to supply, yes, three muscles, and you know them already. Those three muscles are also supplied by, of course, inferior gluteal nerve. And what are these muscles? We talk about, of course, gluteus medius muscle, gluteus minimus, and of course tensor fascia lata. Okay, those ones will get in that supply from inferior gluteal. The superior gluteal, artery will be supplying a single muscle, and that single muscle is, of course, the gluteus maximus muscle. Okay, so that's an important thing I want you to know. Yes, you will see that those three muscles I mentioned, those by way of the tensor fascia lata, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, will be supplied by, of course, the superior gluteal artery. Okay, so that is one thing that we find. Alright, so that is that one. So it means when I talk about inferior gluteal artery alongside inferior gluteal nerve, they will rather be supplying the largest muscle in the human body in the gluteal region by way of the gluteus maximus muscle. Okay, that's one thing we know. So that's what so these are the divisions coming from the anterior aspects. Now, how about the posterior? Those branches will be coming from the posterior division. My friends, the posterior division right over here, we will see one branch which will be emerging, going upwards, ascending this way, and that's why we are calling going towards the ilium. Yes, the ilium is over here. And of course, this is the lumbar, so we are going to call it the ilio-lumbar artery. So the artery is known as the ilio-lumbar artery. That's the posterior division. And my friends, one thing that we know about this iliolumbar artery is that the name is iliolumbar, and therefore it will divide, giving us an iliac branch and of course a lumbar branch. Of course, the iliac branch quickly will supply the muscle which is over here, will give some supply to it by way of course the iliacus muscle. And of course the lumbar one will go to the more superiorly, going to what we call the posterior abdominal wall, going to of course supply some of those muscles over there by way of the psoas major muscle, and of course the quadratus lumborum muscle. That is the iliolumbar artery. It's as simple as that. Then the next one that I want to talk about, yes, is this guy over here, which you can see, which is running, okay, on the lateral wall, by going medially, okay, it's running laterally. Now, I told you that there will be one, artery in the midline, which we call it, what we call the median sacral artery, okay, it's coming from the posterior extent or terminal branch of what we call the abdominal aorta, the median sacral artery. Therefore, any artery which will be bilateral, coming from either side, yes, running lateral to it, will be called, yes, not running in the midline. That's why we are calling it lateral sacral artery. But my friends, one thing that we find is that although it's running laterally, it will run downwards and then going towards the midline. So it runs inferior-medially, okay, to anastomose with what we call the median sacral artery, okay, to supply, of course, those musculature around and behind what we call the sacrum over here. Okay, that is what we find, the wall of the posterior wall of the pelvis. And then my friends, I told you about this guy over here, which is the terminal branch of the posterior division of terminal branch of the posterior division of internal iliac artery, and that's that guy which is known as the superior gluteal artery. Yes, it means that one also exits this pelvic cavity through the greater sciatic foramen, okay, above the muscle I told you, that's the piriformis muscle, okay, and it is going down there to supply those three muscles, yes, alongside what we call the superior gluteal nerve, will be supplying what we call the tensor fascia lata, gluteus medius, and of course gluteus minimus muscles. Okay, so that is one thing that I want you to know. This is an important bit that I want you to know over here. So my friends, what have you seen in summary? What have you seen? I've told you that the pelvic musculature, there are important things. Pelvic vasculature, there are several other muscles, but the important one is this guy which we are calling it the internal iliac artery. My friends, this internal iliac artery came from, of course, common iliac artery, okay, and that division into internal and of course external iliac arteries, I told you that it occurred approximately at the level of L5S1 vertebral level. My friends, I even told you that this common iliac artery also came from the division, okay, terminal division of what we call the abdominal aorta at the level of lower border of L4 vertebral level. That's what we see, okay. And my friends, I told you that this external iliac artery, yes, it has to, this common iliac artery will have external and of course internal. And my friends, this external, yes, will go all the way then beyond the level of the inguinal ligament. The name will change to become, of course, the femoral artery. But I'm interested in that of the internal iliac artery. And this internal iliac artery, I told you that the posterior division okay, will give rise to, of course, we said the iliolumbar. It will ascend upwards. It will go and supply not only the iliacus, because we have an iliac division, and of course lumbar division. The lumbar division going to posterior abdominal will ascend upwards to supply, of course, the by way of the psoas major muscle, and of course the quadratus lumborum muscle. Okay, that's what we see. And then I also told you that there will be another branch which we are called lateral sacral artery, which will run inferiormedially anastomosis with what we call the median sacral artery, yes, so that they supply those vasculature and of course the nerves around the posterior wall of the pelvis over here. Okay, that's what we see. And then also I told you that the largest branch, okay, from of course the posterior division, and for that matter from all these divisions we are talking about, is this guy over here, which we are calling the superior gluteal artery. The name superior gluteal artery might confuse you. You might think it is going to supply gluteus maximus, but no, it is rather going to supply what we call the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus alongside tensor fascia lata, okay, those superficial muscles in the gluteal region. Okay, that's what we find over here. So these are what we call the muscles, the vasculature come from the posterior division. Then how about the anterior division? I told you that for the anterior division, it makes sense that if you go in an anticlockwise manner, it will help us to remember these things. Now I told you that the first one I talk about is what we call the obturator artery, more laterally placed obturator artery. Yes, it will run alongside the obturator, nerve, okay, and as well of course obturator vein, through what we call obturator canal, that superior small opening in what we call the obturator foramen, after it is filled by what we call the obturator membrane. Okay, that is what we call the obturator artery, and the obturator artery is going to supply muscles of the medial compartment of the thigh, and those ones you know them by the adductors. They are the adductors of the thigh. And my friends, once I'm done with that, then I go a bit upwards, but it's more medial. Okay, is this guy over here, which we are calling it the umbilical artery. My friends, this umbilical artery, you know that in fetal life it was very relevant in carrying oxygen poor blood or deoxygenated blood, okay, from the fetus through the placenta, through the umbilical cord towards the placenta, so that for subsequent oxygenation. Okay, so that is the umbilical artery. Now we say that this umbilical artery becomes obliterated, okay, and it will give rise to what we call the medial umbilical ligament. My friends, there's a catch over here which I've explained to you, that it is the distal portion of this. So please, can you see what I'm showing over here? The distal portion which is over here, which is use some kind of dotted lines to show this distal portion, is what we call the medial umbilical ligament. Okay, that's the obliterated portion. So whenever you talk about the remnant of what we call the umbilical artery, think about only the distal portion, which will give rise to what we call the medial umbilical ligament. Why? Because the proximal portion, yes, will give rise to all these branches that we find over here, which is known as the superior vesical artery. So you can get this question in an exam, that the superior vesical artery, yes, is a branch of what? Is a branch of what we call the proximal part of the umbilical artery. Okay, that's an important thing. Now my friends, the superior vesical artery, you can see these several branches supplying the superior extent of it. Then my friends, how about the inferior portion of this same superior vesical artery? Then one thing that you have to know about the superior vesical artery is that, yes, in males you are going to find it over there. It will supply alongside the prostate gland, because the prostate gland will be around the neck, okay, around the neck, below the neck of the urinary bladder, alongside the seminal vesicle, which will be at the posterior wall of what we call the urinary bladder. But in females, you don't have inferior vesical artery. Yes, rather we have what we call the vaginal artery, okay, doing that same role for us. Then once we are done with that, then I have to quickly look at what we call the uterus over here. And the uterus, yes, it has to be supplied by, of course, the uterine artery. So you can see this artery which is over here, this artery is over here, which is called the uterine artery. Okay, so that is that guy, uterine artery. The uterine artery will be supplying, of course, the uterus. Okay, so that is one thing that we find. Then the other one that you should also know, yes, is this guy which is over here. Yes, now you can see this guy is known as the middle rectal artery. Okay, so the middle rectal artery, because I'm going towards the rectum, okay, so I look at the middle rectal artery, and the middle rectal artery, yes, is going to supply the lower aspect of the rectum, while for the superior rectal artery will be supplying the upper aspect of the rectum, which is coming from what we call inferior mesenteric artery. And I told you that the inferior rectal artery will be supplying the external inner sphincter mainly, Yes, so it's more towards the anal aspect, and that one will be coming from, of course, the internal pudendal artery. Okay, so that is what we saw. Then that is that guy over here, for support the internal pudendal artery, the main artery to the perineum. Yes, and therefore I told you that it has to dodge, okay, this because there's no perforation in this pelvic what do you call it, the pelvic floor by way of the pelvic diaphragm. Okay, then we'll have to dodge this pelvic diaphragm by going outside through what we call the greater sciatic foramen, and then to, of course, re-enter through what we call lesser sciatic foramen. Okay, there's that guy over here, which we are calling it the internal pudendal artery. And not only that, I told you that this internal pudendal artery usually will run along what we call the pudendal nerve. Yes, both of them will do the same thing, the same trick. Yes, and then of course both of them will also, yes, be a content of what we call the pudendal canal or the Alcock's canal. Okay, so that is that one, the internal pudendal artery. Then, my friends, having talked about the internal pudendal artery, then the last one, okay, the ultimate division, okay, of the anterior division is of course what we call the inferior gluteal artery. It is this inferior gluteal artery alongside the inferior gluteal nerve which will be supplying what we call the superior which will be supplying what we call the gluteus maximus, muscle. Okay, that's what we see. Now, one thing that you can see that this pudendal nerve, the root value from S2, S3, S4, that's where it's coming. Okay, and to be moving along what we call the internal pudendal artery in, of course, the Alcock's canal. All right, I hope you find this meeting helpful. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.